Here I am.
All right. Can I have a motion, please?
I move we reconvene into open session.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, motion is carried. And then can I have another motion?
Let's see. Oh, that's right.
Oh, we're doing
Yep.
the motion for
Item
D.
I move approval of waiving liquidated damages for breach of individual teacher contracts as presented during closed session.
Second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, order of business, there's no public appearances today?
There is.
There is.
Is there? No.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion for consent agenda, please?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, moving on to recognitions.
Okay, this week we are celebrating School Psychology Week. So we'd like to thank all of our school psychologists, Kelsey Dekoff, Lauren Lennon, Jessica Schultz, Melissa Smith, Julianne Schneider, Becky Schwantz, and Abby Welch for supporting our students' ability to learn and our teachers' ability to teach. And check out what the community is sharing about these great staff members here, and there will be a link added there shortly. Taylor Prairie School held a Take Your Growing Up to PE Day, where students and their loved ones participated in several superhero training stations organized by PE teacher Ginger Veith. And again, there are some photos of the fun. I think we mentioned this at the last meeting, that people had an opportunity to participate. Fifth graders at Granite Ridge School were able to choose their own adventure as they participated in different activities at Fall Palooza. Some of the stations to choose from included solving a murder mystery, yoga, trivia, a game of Just Dance, and building a bridge with tape and Q-tips. And again, we have photos. And lastly, we have many of our high school athletes and an alumnus who have enjoyed impressive and notable successes in recent weeks, and we have a number of links to those various news stories.
All right. Next, we have correspondence and announcements.
So attached is the actual notice of election for 2023 that has all the relevant information, and so just wanted to bring that to your attention, that will be published shortly.
All right. Next, our administrative reports. School nutrition report. Maggie Sen.
Hello. I understand we have technical difficulties, but my PowerPoint will be available.
Is available on board docs.
Is available on board.
So,
Docs.
yeah, so you can see it.
Follow along. Thank you for having me. I'm Maggie Santa. I'm a registered dietitian and the school nutrition director with our district. I joined the district in January after 5.5 years at Madison Schools. I know you're all busy, so let's dive in. Just to kind of give you an update on what we're doing with school nutrition. Working on changing some menu concepts. I'm looking at right now doing seasonal cycle menus. So November will be our last month of the fall cycle, and we'll start a new menu cycle in December. My goal as I'm changing menus is to maintain familiarity for the students while progressing towards new menu concepts. Trying to model some healthy habits and move towards more scratch cooking. So one of the things we've started doing is more in-house produce processing. To be honest, in the past, a lot of times we get produce in ready to eat, so like celery cut up in sticks, washed, ready to go. So as we're expanding farm to school, we are doing more processing ourselves, and that's, ensuring that the kitchens have the equipment they need, staff training, things like that. A lot of our focus right now is at lunch. Breakfast, the way it's set up and served, is a little bit more of a challenge to make changes. So one of the things we've done is adding protein every day at breakfast. So kids have either like a local yogurt cup or string cheese available at breakfast every day. So I know that food insecurity is lower in our community than in some surrounding districts, but it's in every community these days. So one thing I'm trying to focus on is as I'm making menu changes, I'm moving slowly and intentionally to not leave any students behind. On the next slide, there are many pictures of trays that you guys can all enjoy at your leisure. So I know a director once said, you know, if you don't tell your story, someone's going to tell it for you. Mm-hmm. So we know that kids love to post pictures online of meal trays, whether or not they're necessarily what's actually being offered. So I put some meal trays up that we've offered this fall. On there you'll see spicy carrot salad, local honey roasted carrot coins. We had a local chili day with cornbread that was made from local cornmeal and flour, broccoli salad, spinach salad, things like that. All right, so on my next slide, I kind of did a comparison of the meals that have been served in September over the past, well, in 2019, 2021, and 2022. 2019 was the last time before this school year that we charged for meals. So comparing this year to 2019, meals are up across the board. It's somewhat modest of an increase, but I think that our meal programs have gotten a little confusing during COVID. I understand that all of the changes made were really well-intentioned and looking to help families during a difficult time, but we operated 3 different programs during COVID, and that was, I think, really confusing to people. So I appreciate that our families have been patient with us and continue to invest in our programs. Just a note too, I adjusted the data based on average daily meals served so that we were looking at consistent days of participation across the board. Like I said earlier, one of the things I'm focusing on is increasing farm to school. October was National Farm to School Month, so we had local Thursdays basically. We did the Great Lakes Great Apple Crunch, where we had local Honeycrisp apples from Stoughton. Kids are still talking about them, and they don't love our regular apples as much anymore. But that's okay, I'll take that. We had a local chili day, we had local carrots, and then we did a recipe from DPI's Team Nutrition, Nutritious Delicious Wisconsin Week for the last recipe. We are also moving forward keeping local Thursdays and starting a Harvest of the Month program. So for November, we did winter squash as our Harvest of the Month, and December will be cranberries. So tomorrow, actually, kids are gonna have local delicata squash with lunch. One thing we're working on is promotion of things. In my experience, there's a lot more good happening on lunch lines than people know about because we don't have time, resources to promote them. So that's one of the things we're working on in the future. Our next slide is our Great Lakes Great Apple Crunch picture starring Dan. I really appreciate that picture.
That was a tough task.
So that was one of the things we tried for promotion. I also recruited an AmeriCorps Farm to School Specialist service member for this year. His name is Wes. He is doing many things across the board. I asked him to give me kind of a lowdown of what he's working on right now. So he's collecting surveys at the beginning and end of the school year to gauge the impact of his service year with our district. His nutrition education topics include My Plate and food groups, where food comes from, diversity in food and nutrition, building healthy habits, and exposure to a variety of foods. So he'll also do taste testing, things like that. As he's building lesson plans, he's incorporating the new Wisconsin nutrition standards, and his lessons usually include take-home activities as well. So his nutrition education materials include local farm tours, interviews, farmer engagement, educational cafeteria posters, digital resources for teachers and other staff. He's also been writing a monthly newsletter with updates on school activities, nutrition lessons, and resources for parents and staff. Currently, he's helping Cottage Grove School apply for a school garden expansion grant. And the picture on the slide is actually a food lab that he did at GDS. The next slide has a few examples of his work. So there is the survey, the pre-farm to school nutrition education survey, two of the things that he's posted around schools, which is Don't Forget About Fruit and Super Squash to go with our winter squash harvest of the month. And then one of his nutrition lessons up in the upper right-hand corner. I know that there are lots of talk the past few years about labor and food shortages in school nutrition, so just to give a quick update on those things. So we have 12 full-time positions in our department with no vacancies. We have 18 part-time positions, and from those we have 2 vacancies at GDS, but one, we have a new hire in HR, so that'll be one soon. But both positions were newly created to support the new surveyed area. So those are positions that we haven't filled in the past. And then we have 2 vacancies at the high school, but we have regular, reliable trade subs that have been covering. And also, the sandwich line closed during COVID because of staffing shortages. The sandwich line, from my understanding, I wasn't here when it was open, but it served hamburgers, chicken patties, things like that. And so we left it closed. It didn't necessarily align with where our menu was going, and it was already closed, so it was a change that was pretty subtle, I think. And then lastly, supply chain updates. Things have gotten a lot better this year. Last year was pretty touch and go some days, but there's still periodic shortages, but they're much more consistent with what we see at the grocery store. So eggs, turkey, aluminum, so that means things that are packaged in some way in aluminum. There's been poor quality with certain crops due to climate. So lettuce has been a little rough. We've had to reject some lettuce, and potatoes have a shortage because of the climate situation. But like I said, much improved from last year. So all in all, I feel like things are going really well in our department. Staff are learning and adapting, and students seem to be receiving the new items really well. So we will keep moving forward, understanding that change takes time, and we're making big changes. So we want to adjust the palates of our students, but we will continue to make baby steps forward. Any questions?
I actually had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
This is probably a Mark and you question. So you talked a little bit about school fees. Just wondering, now that we have school fees this year, are we behind at all? Is it a significant deficit in that area with school fees?
Maggie probably would know more because she deals with it on a daily basis, but I would assume more people are qualifying for free and reduced.
Yeah, we do have some pretty good rates of approval of free and reduced applications. We do have more negative balances than we've had in the past, and we're working on adjusting how we contact families about those. So I'm hoping that as we get more streamlined with our contact too, that will decrease.
Okay. Sorry, a couple more.
Okay.
So they're kind of all over too.
Can I just say something really quick?
Yeah.
Comment on the negative balances? It'll be interesting to hear, maybe we can look back on it kind of mid-year around to what extent the negative balances are because of affordability, and to what extent is like, I've been getting universal free meals and I sort of like forgot how to pay, or my kids are, like this, speaking for myself, like my kids are taking food, which is great, And then like I don't know, and then I go out and the campus and go, oh, $30 to the district. So I was kind of curious about kind of unpacking what that maybe means for a district.
Yeah, I definitely think that that is a fairly significant part of the negative balances. Because as we're contacting families slowly, we are hearing like, oh, we had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Sorry, Lauren, I just wanted to stuff.
No, that was a great question.
Well, thank you.
It was. All right, the other question I had was, you talked about promotion. Do we know if some of this is embedded in the curriculum?
That is something that Wes is tackling.
Okay.
And so right now he's working with teachers who are interested in working with him. It's kind of like an opt-in to his nutrition education. But I think the goal would be to partner with existing curriculum long-term so that it's kind of a, you know, mutually beneficial. Like we're helping them with meeting their curriculum standards and they're helping us with nutrition education.
Awesome. And then, I guess this one kind of ties with the first question, but you talked a little bit about the food insecurity, and that you were doing some things along those lines. So what are you doing to kind of help with food insecurity?
Well, so my goal is to just make sure that the 2 meals a day kids are getting at school are the most nourishing meals they can get.
Good.
And that they're also accessible and familiar to them. They're not intimidating in any way.
That's great. All right, those are all of my questions. I think this is a wonderful program that you,
Thank you.
Susan?
Well, it's,
Yeah.
sorry. And Dan, one of the things that continues to come up in the Education Foundation is identification of needs. And I think one of the major conversations at the Education Foundation at the meeting on Tuesday was how do you communicate to staff that you might have funding available to assist students, and you would clearly be a key person that would need to be involved. So I think there's still some work that needs to be done with, I mean, when you make that certain amount on a fundraiser, and then you're talking about how to allocate those funds, you need the input from the staff about what their needs might be as well. And particularly for the Play It Forward program, they're very structured in trying to meet the needs of the students in every way. So I don't know, maybe one of the things you and Jason could do is clarify the process for staff to ask for support from the foundation, because this would be a perfect place that you might need it. And effectively, that's what the foundation is trying to fundraise for, is to meet the needs of the students. So we just need to do the plus piece, I think.
Great, thank you. Susan, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very impressed with this and happy to see it happening. And my question is, I know we have a couple of legislators in the state, and I'm not sure this has much of a chance of going anywhere, but they're working pretty hard on it, on having the state fund breakfast and lunch, because there are so many districts where food insecurity is a huge issue. And it would, as it equalized the field a little bit more before it would do that. And then as I was thinking about this, though, I thought, and I don't know how that would be implemented if it got passed, but worrying a little bit about the impact of the food quality, because clearly the costs here are a little different, and just, I don't know, have you heard anything about those efforts?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that would have a negative impact on this kind of program, but,
I really don't think it would.
okay.
The reimbursement rates have been pretty generous, especially since COVID. They've increased them, actually.
Okay.
So we get more for reimbursement for a student who qualifies for free meals than we charge a student who pays full price for meals. So the reimbursement rates are pretty generous. We can easily work with.
So if this were a state program, it would be a little different than, but yeah, that'd be something to consider, so, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think too, on that point, they would have to work with Fed
Right,
and
they would,
and cooperate or
Right.
right.
mold those two programs together, and we still have the federal guidelines as far as food quality
Right,
and nutrition and, calories and salt and all that stuff
Right.
that we would still have to follow, otherwise the Fed would pull their funding.
Right, yeah, we would definitely have that. I was thinking the quality here of these fresh vegetables and things
Oh,
is so
yeah,
much better.
yeah,
and
right.
I wouldn't want to lose that,
Right.
which, I mean, it's just something to think about when I talk to the legislators about what their thoughts are, so, thank you.
Yeah, I know at least 3 states are doing it this year.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see how they do.
yeah, okay.
I have some questions. First of all, thank you for coming. I was so excited to hear. I know last year, I think it was towards the end of the school year last year, sort of when you came on board, we were talking about the budget and those pieces and some of the ideas you had around our nutrition program. They all sounded so amazing, and so I'm so glad that you're here to sort of share and see the pictures. It's so good. I have a couple of really kind of sort of specific, wonky, nuanced questions. Welcome to me on the board. So I am really interested in this movement that we're doing towards scratch cooking, and it certainly in the zeitgeist. USDA is all over it. There's a bunch of other organizations that are really aiming to support those pieces. And my understanding, and it's like very finite, right, around scratch cooking is specifically around like the quality of our kitchens and our ability to have the right, not just people in terms of training, but actual quality stuff. And so I guess I'm curious from your perspective, what is the state of our kitchens currently? Recognizing that there might be variability because we have like a building like Granite Ridge, which is brand new, and then maybe buildings that are less new. So just kind of curious from your perspective, like how ready are we to move into scratch cooking, and what else would you need? Because from our board seat, like this to me feels like that's the place where we would think about budgets and those pieces.
Yeah, I think that we, honestly, like I said, I came from the Madison School District, so I'm really pleased with our kitchens from what I've worked with for many years. We use GDS in the high school as production kitchens.
Okay.
So if we were bringing in raw product, it would go there, be cooked, and then sent to the elementary schools.
Okay.
Which gives us a lot more, I guess, flexibility because we only need to build up those 2 kitchens then. And they have a good amount of equipment. I think we will need to invest a little bit more. This year we bought like a Roboku, which is a giant industrial food processor basically to break down some vegetables for us, because then they do that for the elementaries as well.
Okay.
But the production kitchens are fairly well equipped. I think there is just a little bit more. A lot of it is training.
Okay, and then that's my follow-up question then on the other side around sort of building staff capacity and kind of how that's going, number one, and kind of your take on our food service staff and how they're feeling about these changes and sort of, moving along with these things in a way that makes them feel still secure in their jobs, right? Still feeling that they've got a level of fluency and, expertise while learning these new things, especially because I feel like staff stress is really high. I think about food service folks in general. I think our food service staff and our school nurses were hit the hardest in terms of some of the pandemic pieces just because the amount of pressure to do those things. So I'm always thinking about stress in food service staff in general.
Yeah, I think a lot of our staff are just happy to not be working under the previous
Sure.
COVID parameters anymore. And so there has been, a few bumps in the road as we're training and some adjustments. But staff, I think, are really excited about it. A lot of them are really motivated by when students give them positive feedback.
Yeah.
So it's like, then it's all worth it. It might have been a little stressful trying to adjust and get a new routine, but then, seeing longer lines or students coming back and saying something was really good, it's really positive to them.
Great. I have some other questions around farm to school, but I want to pause to see if anyone else has questions before I just continue to talk. So thank you for that. That was really helpful. Specifically to farm to school, and I think you alluded to this, but I'm going to ask, so I apologize. But we have a farm to school grant currently, correct?
The AmeriCorps program is kind of like a grant.
Okay.
We had to match a small amount of the funds, but the majority of Wes's stipend, they call it, and benefits are federally funded.
Okay. And how do we So you talk about like, it's like squash this time, or, it was carrots a while ago. How does that aspect get determined? Is that, do you make that determination? Is it part of?
Yeah, so there's a state Harvest of the Month program that was developed maybe 2 years ago now. And so they just kind of have like seasonal divisions.
Okay.
And we pick from those and work within that, yeah.
Great. And then any opportunities that you know of, at least now, in terms of expanding some of this work, either scratch cooking or farm to school?
In April, I'm going to a training called Scratchworks, which I'm really excited
Nice.
about. Yeah, so that is where districts who are trying to move forward come and kind of build a program together rather than everyone reinventing the wheel themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what I pick up there.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is great. Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
Have her around. Hopefully I'll try them.
She'll invite us for lunch.
I really want to. The kids love it. So.
Great.
All right. So that leaves us with. Sorry, my computer froze there. Dan, your superintendent.
Yeah, so
report.
actually I have nothing additional tonight. We had Maggie here, so I didn't prepare any additional report, so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right. So board report, starting with policy committee, Susan Manning.
Yes. Our policy committee works really hard. We did a really nice job. We had actually met because Elizabeth was unavailable. Susan and I had met and gone through the 18 policies that you're going to be seeing for first read tonight. But we truly value the entire committee discussion. So we actually met again on November 7th and reviewed the 18 policies submitted by Neola for revision, kind of again, and brought up it allowed Elizabeth to bring up any issues she might see and anything that we had already seen that we'd really like to get her input on. So the policies approved by the committee are presented for first read at tonight's board meeting. The committee also discussed resources for a possible SRO policy. We do have language that specifically talks about having an SRO position, but we've discussed a specific policy that allows the board to move forward with that position based on board approval. And we're continuing further discussion as we do further research to see what other districts have done. We're particularly looking at an MOU from Oregon. And we're going to continue working on that with input from the administrative team. Superintendent Olson reviewed policy submitted by Neola for technical corrections. Normally, he just brings those forward, but he just did a nice review for us, so we had a feel for what those were. And the committee will meet in January to continue discussion on the SRO policy, a wellness policy, and a policy related to workforce secondary traumatic stress, which we've been discussing for several months. It's interesting, Neola really guides us in the work that we do, but occasionally we'll, as a group, based on our research, see things that we think should be said a little bit better and add clarity, and then we actually reference to a statute or an administrative code or something. And in the Neola policies, we were doing this last time, weren't there like 3 changes that actually we had made that Neola liked and adapted? So anyway, so again, this is really a good committee and it works really hard. So that's that report. You want the Education Foundation?
Yes.
Okay. And I know Tish posted both of those. Dan was unable to come to that meeting, and it's amazing. It was November 8th. It was Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Kind of when Dan's there, he brings so much information to that meeting that there were just times that it was difficult for them to move forward on particular issues because he seems to know a lot of the answers. I won't say all, but most. And then Kathy Boltman, who actually is a previous board member and of the school board and is on the foundation board, is not going to be renewing her board position. So she received many thanks for the work she's done, and she's going to continue to help with the website. The 2021 tax return has been completed and submitted. 2021. And Dean Bowles contributed $5,000 to the foundation. All sponsored thank you notes. There should be a K. Anyway, thank you notes and recognition have been completed. Sandy Homburg made cookies and Kathy Thomas made brownies, and they actually delivered them to the high-level sponsors. Then they approved the renewing board member terms of Jason McCutcheon, Carrie Robbins, Jane Beebe, Mary Salvi, and Patty Parrott. They're adding pages to the Monona Grove Education Foundation website for individual programs, including Teacher Innovation Grants, Scholarships Weekend, Snack Pack Program, and Pay It Forward. Because if I ask you right now, what are those programs, you might not know. So they really want to be able to communicate that better, particularly as we were saying tonight, to staff so they know when funds are available for a project that you may feel you need to do with your students. There was approval of a $500 donation to the students of the Colored Union SCU at Glacial Drumlin. The golf ball drop netted $26,600, $18,000 in sponsorship. So thank each and every one of you who was a sponsor, as well as those who bought tickets. And $12,500 in tickets. Thank yous have been sent. The following have received, so one of the things they talked about was allocating the funding from the golf ball drop. And they've added $5,000 for the snack pack program, $5,000 for the teacher innovation grants, and $8,500 for Play It Forward, which helps meet individual needs of students. Grant and Awards Committee report, Jane Beebe chairs that. There's ongoing work on the teacher innovation grants, including a grab-and-go process for MG21. Normally, that's a student can go into an area if there's a need and have these items available for them. And they've added winter coats to that, which is really nice. John Weinberger chairs the Pay It Forward Committee, and they are working with the schools to provide supplies and communicate better with staff, so staff knows how to contact them when they need help and support effectively. And they reported, the Snack Pack Committee report says that there are 137 students currently receiving services from this program. And then they'll meet in December. So at some point, I hope we can do something that very specifically tells the board about each of the programs that they do and the allocated funds per year for those programs, and then how they plan to process that information to staff so that they can help meet the needs of the students. That's it.
All right, you've done a lot of wonderful things, Susan.
Yeah. The thank you notes, 40 hours. Extremely.
All right, now possible action items. May I have a motion, please?
I move approval of offer to purchase approximately 8.5 acres of district property located in the village of Cottage Grove as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, next is the COVID-19 vaccine policy.
Okay, so this is something the board has not had a discussion about in quite some time, and so we listed under possible action. I do want to be clear that if you have comfort level to take action tonight, you may. You certainly don't need to if you like additional discussion. This is the first time that we've revisited this. But we put together a memo to try to explain a little bit what our rationale was, and why we think this policy at the time was very well intentioned, based upon what we knew at that time, I think it made a lot of sense. Clearly, a lot has changed in this past year about what we know about, COVID and about our employees. And so we do believe that it's kind of run its course and really not necessary any longer. So not knowing exactly what points of discussion you might want to have, instead of going through with a large presentation, we thought we'd prepare the memo and then just open it up for discussion and answer any questions. And so this is really kind of a team approach. Nicole certainly has a very large part of this about having to implement the policy, and what that means for her and her staff. As far as keeping our buildings safe is a team effort. Of course, Chris is very much involved in leading our health services team. Katie is very involved with our communication and keeping up to speed as well about the latest that we get from public health and DHS and CDC. So with that, I'll just pause, and any one of us can help as a team answer any questions that you have and engage in dialogue.
Susan?
Dan, one of the questions I have was, when this, and again, Dan and I were talking about this, this did not come through policy committee. This basically is an administrative policy that governance fees. When this first came forward, there was support from the teachers union for this, and I wondered if we received any input from staff on this. Not at this time.
No.
Okay. And then we no longer quarantine close contacts of positive cases. So if a student is positive, there's not the 5-day.
For close contacts. So if you're positive, you have to quarantine, but if you're a close contact of someone who's positive.
Oh,
you
I
don't.
got it. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes, did you see how I read that?
Mhm.
It was like,
Yeah.
we no longer quarantine
Close contacts
close contacts.
of people for whom are positive.
Who had
COVID.
Yes, contact with people, yes.
Yes.
Are there any other board questions?
I mean, I'd say I would support a sunset of this policy, given the circumstances where we are now. Just know a lot more. Without going in, when it was originally, when everybody was trying to figure out something we didn't have much information or know much about, I think, with the combination of the people that have natural immunity and have had the vaccine, be surprised there's many people who haven't got COVID at this point at some time. Just think we're ready to do this, or we should seriously consider doing this. So,
Elizabeth?
I agree with Eric, and I think especially if the policy doesn't extend to boosters and what we know about like the original 2-dose, then I feel like sort of it's a little bit of like, what's the point? Like it feels like administrative burden if we're not going to amend it to say like you have to sort of keep up with what we know from the science like around regularly getting boosted. So I am totally in agreement. I think it made sense at the time. I think it makes sense to sunset it now. A wondering I have, Dan, though, is around, I know we're running like a vaccine clinic as a district, but I'm curious from a staffing perspective, right? Like when you run like a flu clinic or any of those things, is there a way for staff to access like flu and COVID vaccines both, like at work, like through a flu clinic or anything like that?
Yes, and I know Chris
They
is
can
probably
access
a lot.
the clinic this
Yep.
weekend. Yes, that was shared with staff and families of students and community. And future, like we always offer flu shot clinics, like what does that become a like as things evolve, the likelihood we will continue to partner and offer.
Yeah, like during the workday flu clinic, right? Like where they set up and
Yeah, kind of our traditional model before,
Yeah.
usually before school.
Yeah.
We actually just talked about banning that for next year, so the
Yeah.
likelihood that could include COVID boosters is high.
probably pretty high. Okay, great.
Susan?
Yeah, I would also support this. I guess I don't want to make it sound like it was. I think it was a good idea. At the
Yeah, it was a
time,
great idea.
because there is so much. The COVID itself has evolved. the vaccine is so much more widely available, so many more people have had it. And I think there is a lot of evidence that people who had the vaccines and were boosted who got COVID got milder cases. So I think it has served a purpose. It's not that it wasn't worthwhile. I think it was, but I think we've evolved to a point where I think a lot of other places too are, waiving requirements and for the vaccine, and even mask wearing fluctuates depending on the place. So this to me makes a lot of sense. I think we've evolved to this point.
Susan?
Well, and I do want to thank you guys for doing the clinic. I called my primary care provider at a major health facility here in Madison, and the COVID booster was 2.5 to 3 weeks out. The flu shot was 2 months out. So they said, go to your local pharmacy. So for you to do this is really great, to provide this access. I can't thank you enough. If I'd known about it, I wouldn't have waited 3 weeks. Yeah.
And I can attest to it, I'm actually getting mine this weekend, so I was able to just get right on the website and pick a date, and it was really seamless, so.
Okay.
All right, so can we have a motion, please? Yes.
I move approval of the sunsetting of the policy, the vaccination, COVID, I'm sorry, let me do this again. I would move to approve sunsetting the policy regarding the requirement for a COVID-19 vaccination policy, previously approved 9/21/21.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, or not, I'm sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, next are discussion items, policy revisions, first reading.
Okay, and Susan set this up during her policy committee report. This is just a standard deal update. Maybe not so standard because one of the shortest ones we've ever had. And,
Actually, did we beat it by a minute the next week? It was really close.
Yeah. So you'll see there, in there, there's 3 policies that are grouped together that are identical that, are repeated depending on what employee group section part of the policy manual they occur in. But in addition to a link to all the draft revisions, then the attachment down below where it says volume 31, number 2 PDF, that is the rationale from Neola on each of these policies. And then the other thing I'd like to bring to your attention are technical corrections. Technical corrections are ones that don't require board approval, but I am required to bring them to your attention when we make them. And as you click and look at those, you'll see a lot of them are just sometimes just grammatical corrections or just clarification that are not substantive. And we also put the attachment with the rationale for some of those also. And so tonight we're not looking for approval. As you recall, we always have to have 2 readings of policy revisions, so it's an opportunity to ask any questions. Otherwise, at our next board meeting, these will be brought back for a second reading and for approval.
Eric?
I had a question about the policy 2414, the human growth and development one.
Which one, Eric? I'm sorry.
Human growth and development. Are we adding some there? I was a little confused by how it was laid out.
Yeah. So great question, and it is because a lot of strike-throughs, a lot of additions, and essentially there is it's a lot of reordering.
Okay.
And a lot of the strike-throughs, in fact, all of them, then reappear in a
So it's just section B is taking the strike-throughs and reorganizing
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And so the other point of note is, so for our policy, there's no change other than just making it read better. Neola did make an update to their options in the template because there was a statutory change a year ago where these things are not required. The statute reads that if you're going to have human growth and development curriculum, these are recommended.
Okay.
And the statutory change actually took off some of those off the list. It's still an option for us, and so we left them on because it is part of our program. So it has no impact on our programming. It's just really as a point of information in compliance with the law.
Okay, got it.
It was really interesting when Dan was reporting this out to us. basically, the statute recommended the language we kept for inclusion. And so then there's a statutory change eliminating the items. Neola dropped these. We kept them. And Neola has now re-added them. So that's why it looks so bad, Eric. Because effectively, we had it and they
we had it.
moved it.
Gotcha.
But
Yes.
The only other thing to bring to your attention, and I don't remember you saying this in your policy report, Susan, so if you didn't, I missed it, and I'm being redundant, I apologize. But we had a conversation at policy meeting around our bullying policy, and so it's in here for review, and then it'll go up for vote at the second reading as it is, but I just wanted to make you aware that we're having larger discussions around additional clarity and sort of cleaning up, particularly around the definition pieces. But we do want to hold the policy because that's going to be a larger discussion that requires also administrative support as well. So if you approve it and then you see it come back sometime later, that's why.
And I did not specifically mention that I was going to see if we brought it up here. An example in that particular policy is that our policy requires an annual bullying report to the board. And that was a piece that the statute does not require. So that was basically put in by us way back when. And so we had a significant amount of discussion around that. And then realized that we probably don't have a good feel for what is required, and at some point, Dan will give us a list of what's required. But Elizabeth brought some great resources about bullying and the actual definition of bullying. Because there isn't one in the statute. There is one in DPI. And so effectively we've used that guidance to build our definition.
Maybe, well, we didn't do any changing to the definition for this policy.
We didn't. But the statute doesn't define it for you.
All right. No other questions? All right, next are future meeting dates.
Okay, so I have two of them highlighted in red. The first one is our next regular meeting is at this point scheduled for Tuesday, the 22nd. It's on a Tuesday because it's right before the Thanksgiving break. I mentioned in a previous memo that I'm recommending that you consider canceling that meeting. We have nothing at this point of action items that are timely that need to occur at that meeting. Given the schedules and the holiday season and so on, we thought that's really not necessary to have that second meeting. And the other part of the rationale is I am recommending that we add a meeting in December to have a budget workshop. Now that we're moving past the election and start to have an idea of what this next state budget may look like and what our budget challenges are, we think it's important to start on that discussion earlier than later. So with that, so recommending that we cancel the November 22nd. Also, my recommendation for the timing of that budget workshop was December 19th. I know we have at least one board member with a conflict on that date, and so we certainly could schedule it another time as well. So I think if we take a few moments now, perhaps to talk about dates and your thoughts about these meetings.
I agree with canceling the 22nd.
Same.
Andrew? Susan? Manny, just want to make sure.
Are you okay with that, Susan?
Okay. Yes.
And let's see, I'm the one who I think, unless it gets canceled, I have a conflict on the 19th.
Me too.
So I might
I'm
prefer
supposed to be out of
Tuesday.
town.
Oh, good, okay. Oh, you're
I'm
not
supposed to be out of town that
the
week.
though, that's right.
So-
That's a plan commission night for
Okay.
me, so I'd rather have it a different
Yep,
night.
so we were looking to give Mark as much time as possible to put together a detailed budget presentation, but can be prepared the week before if that would work, the week of the 12th.
That would be better for me if it would work for you, Mark. And obviously the rest of the board.
Dan, would you send an email out with
Oh, sure, absolutely.
2
We'll
dates,
confirm
and
this.
then we can respond to that?
Well, why don't we, throw out a couple now, though.
Yeah, while we're all here.
While we're all here.
Can we just throw out some while we're here?
Wednesday the 21st.
I don't have anything
So-
No, the following
week. It's,
I mean, sorry, not the following, the preceding week of.
So we go the
We
week,
have a board, so we have a board meeting on the 14th, so you're looking at Monday the 12th.
I think those would be the options, right? Monday the 12th or Tuesday the 13th. I think Monday would be preferred. And I guess the other thing is, at times when we've had workshops, and it's been a while, right? When we're in
Yeah, we
person,
do them
we
earlier.
could do it earlier and have, lunch as well. Or
Yeah, I mean, if that 18th, I know Elizabeth wouldn't be here, would be the deficit. For me, doing it from 5 would be a possibility, but otherwise, yeah, the week of the 12th would be better for me, I guess.
12th and 13th.
well, yeah, it's exam week for us, so I mean, it
13th.
works, but I don't know how early I can.
13th is bad for me.
I could do the 12th, just, I don't know if I'd be able to do it at lunchtime.
No, an early meeting, like a 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I could do
6
that.
or 7 at night.
Yeah, I could do that.
And that's better than like Thursday the 15th or.
You said lunch, didn't you?
He did say lunch.
Dinner, thank you.
He did say lunch. Yeah. Let's do the 12th, make it a working dinner meeting.
Is everyone okay with the 12th?
Except for Mark.
Yep, that works.
Does that work for you, Mark?
That's fine.
Sorry, Mark.
What time, 5?
Can you make that right?
Yeah. I'll squeeze it in.
Just say it this way, you'll be done then. and then-
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
It's an early Christmas present for you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so that's the
Okay.
While we're on meetings, just really quick, because I know that there's a lot of interest in teaching, learning, and equity committee, and typically we meet on a regular cadence on a Monday, like fourth Monday of the month, but there's a conflict there, so right now, the tentative date that we're looking at is December 6th, which is a Tuesday. It hasn't been confirmed, but since we don't have a board meeting between now and then, I just want to let you all know that we may be off schedule.
And Eric and I did get a chance to connect.
Yeah.
And so we're.
Okay, so we're confirmed for the,
I've got emails to Peter just to
I saw that.
confirm.
And
Okay.
this
So-
is gonna be in person or?
it'll be virtual, 3 o'clock.
Okay.
You'll get the agenda, but
Okay.
meetings are popular places to be, so I want to let y'all know.
All right, so Andrew, your favorite,
I like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
His favorite thing.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, meeting is adjourned.
It's gonna be a good one too, Tilly. We're talking data.
So
We're talking
then
data.
next week, I'm gonna send, cancellation of our meetings.
Yeah,
I don't-